Buffering.
Live from a snowbound traffic jam on I-70, you're listening to Downshift with your hosts Ryan and Jason. This is the Colorado Cars and Coffee podcast by car enthusiasts for car enthusiasts. Clutch in, gear down, and let's start the show.
I love it. That music catches me every time. It really has like a 70s police drama on Colfax unfolding vibe to it, you know, like private eye stuff.
Yeah, a little what would Miami Vice have been like if it were Denver Vice? Colfax Vice. What would they have driven if it was in Miami Vice? They had the Ferrari Daytona, the black Daytona, which was iconic, and then they had the white Testarossa, which was even more iconic. So what would they have driven in like Denver Vice?
Like the Pontiac McLaren, like GTP.
A Cheyenne pickup truck.
Yeah, it's not there, like an old Ford Ranger.
Ford Ranger. A Chevy Beretta
with no tailgate.
A rusty Beretta with snow tires.
It's still in the middle of summer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
those kind of people.
Those kind of people.
All right. Hey,
go ahead.
Episode 3. Here it is.
That's it. We're here.
I don't know if anybody saw the promo. No guests, so you have to deal with the two of us for a solid hour. So come prepared.
Good luck.
Yeah, we'll see how that works.
My condolences to you all.
All right.
Yeah. So we're here. That was my first time driving pushing the buttons and doing the things with the music and the intro. So hopefully we're live. Hopefully this is going out to the internet, to the world, to all 7 people probably that will watch us. And but let's get into it. Let's see. We have things to talk about. As Ryan said, we have no guests today, so it is just us. I do want to give a shout again to the letters to the carburetors. You can reach out to us and give us your questions, comments, concerns, give us feedback. Tell us, what do you want us to talk about? What do you want to hear from us? And we will answer those questions and do our best to accommodate your feedback on the show. Don't think we've received any comments in a little while. No letters to the carburetors. So with that said,
we need material.
And what's the email address again, Ryan, that the folks can hit us with questions?
Oh, I screwed it up last time, isn't it? Oh no, it's downshift at coloradocarsandcoffee.com.
There you go. It's that easy.
It's written right there. That's why I didn't screw it up this time.
Nice. All right. Yeah. Do you want to give the folks a quick hit on some of our outlets and a few upcoming things that are in the pipeline?
Outlets. Colorado Cars and Coffee is as they say. Obviously, you can find us on Facebook. That's kind of where most of the magic goes down. There's a Facebook group and a Facebook page. I made a point of that in my promo earlier in the group. If you want to watch on Facebook, you need to go to the page, and I linked it. Instagram, of course, that's where you'll see tons of content. We're posting at least once a day, if not more than that.
Juicy pics, car pics.
Photos from very good photographers in our community, the Shift Magazine team, as well as average Joes such as myself going out and using a cell phone to take a picture of the sweet car at the meet. What else we got? We actually are on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. Not sure
the social
how much
media
content's being shoved out there, but hey, we're on it. YouTube, 2 different channels. You can catch us on the Colorado Cars and Coffee YouTube channel live right now. And we also have the Shift Magazine channel. Twitch, it's still a thing, folks. Thriving. We are broadcasting there as well. So you've got 3 options on how to tune in or ignore us. We actually have a Threads and some of the meatier stuff. A newsletter. We just had a newsletter go out last Wednesday, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. I once I do it, like it kind of just leaves the memory. But yeah, we had a newsletter go out. Interesting fact, that was the 4-year anniversary of the newsletter. The Colorado Cars and Coffee newsletter has been around for 4 years. I'd have to dig to find out what issue number that. Well, 104. I think it was 104.
Yeah, I believe
4
you're
years
right.
solid, and we actually with that issue just peaked 8,000 subscribers too. So we're well on our way. We're well on our way to it costing more to send out the newsletter.
Sorry, Steve.
So subscribe, sub that up. The biggest part of that. Well, here we'll skip that real quick, and I'll come back to the newsletter. And we have the Shift Colorado quarterly digital magazine as well. We talked about it in depth last time, and once again, I'm going to stammer over my own thoughts because it really is such a quality piece of journalism. Like, if you haven't read an issue yet, you really need to. The Colorado Cars and Coffee Shift magazine team, they get early release press cars. They get to test some stuff. Like they just had, I can't remember the name.
They had a Volkswagen ID Buzz.
Yeah, the ID Buzz. They had a Volkswagen electric bus.
Yeah.
And took it on quite an adventure through the mountains, I hear.
Well, it got cut short from the weather kind of hammered them with some slippery road conditions, and their road trip got cut short. But
yeah, and there was I saw the photo with like this solid inch thick layer worth of road and snow debris stuck to the front of that thing. I'm sure the Volkswagen was pleased to get that back. But again, Shift Magazine, seriously, like it's not just some kids making a zine in their basement. Like this is a quality publication
and free. Absolutely free.
Hey, that's a good point. Covers nationwide automotive news and obviously focuses on some stuff right here in Colorado. Going back to the newsletter. Every newsletter bi-weekly. It's also digital. That comes out every other Wednesday, and each one has almost a full 3 weeks worth of local automotive events. Sometimes not the racing events are in there. Usually it's just meets, cruises, that sort of thing. And with that, I almost forgot. I think that's why I saw you did one of these. But wait,
there's more.
Yeah, there is more. Issue 11 of the Shift Colorado magazine is actually coming out this coming Friday, March 7th. Issue 11. So there'll be plenty of hype on that on all those media channels I just mentioned. So be sure to keep an eye out for that.
Yep.
And as an extension of Shift Colorado magazine, we do a summer events guide as well. It's been out the last 2 years, getting ready to go on year 3. That will be the same digital format essentially as the Shift Colorado magazine, but it will be purely an events guide. It's out right now. If you go to shiftcolorado.com, it's this last year's summer event guide is there, so you can catch a peek. Jason and I are actually in the process right now of updating all the information, removing outdated old events, trying to add new ones. So if you guys have had a chance to go through that summer event guide by chance and know of something that either is not happening or that is happening that hasn't been mentioned, let us know. Again, downshift at coloradocarsandcoffee.com. We'll take that. That's getting ready to come out.
We should actually probably, Ryan, we should be working on that instead of doing this show.
Yeah, probably.
I'm kidding, but not kidding. No.
And then loose release for the summer event guide, mid-April, correct?
Yes, that's
Mid-April.
right. Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're tracking to mid-April, and yeah, it's going to be fun because I think last year we were on a bit of a time crunch. It was a bit last minute, and I think this year we're giving ourselves a much longer runway and a lot more lead time. So we're going through and actually freshening up the copy and writing some new stuff and getting some fresh photos. And so it'll be, yeah, I think it'll be fun. And yeah, like Ryan said, if anybody out there sees an event or something that I think we're really trying to highlight, it's really hitting on the highlights of stuff that happens sort of once per year during those late spring, summer, and early fall months and time periods, right? So it's like, what are the highlights, the big shows, the most popular, or the super high quality, super unique type of events that are out there? So if you look at our prior summer events guide and see something that was missed, shoot us a note. If you have an event that's going to happen for the first time and it's going to be, you're anticipating it's going to be big and successful, give us a shout, give us some indication of what it's going to be, and we'll check it out. And
photos. He said we're updating copy, trying to get new information from event hosts or people that have been, and that includes photos. We always need photos. They do need to be non-cell phone or, iPhone 36,000 quality, whatever it is. It's going into, a high-grade digital publication. We need quality photos and information on the events. So if you've been to something, got a photo maybe, let us know. We'll be working on it, and you'll see us reach out to the Colorado Cars and Coffee Facebook group, requesting assistance further.
That's it. And that's a great segue into our next topic of conversation, which is our list of events that we publish in the newsletter. It is starting to fill up again. It was very slim, and it was slim pickings for a while, for a few months this winter. We had some cold and snowy weekends for a few months, but now we are getting things are looking better, and I want to just give a little hit to that. So this is the last newsletter that we published on Wednesday, as Ryan said. And here are some of the events that recur every weekend. And then we've got other stuff that happens once a month. And I think it's really cool to see. I mean, you've got your Friday night cruises and meetups. You've got your Saturday and Sunday morning meetups. This M-Town meets there. They have a pretty good following. It's BMW M-Car centric, but certainly not exclusive. And that's a fun one. I've cruised through there once or twice. And then we've got once a month. The first weekend of the month is really looking strong. You've got, of course, Lafayette Cars and Coffee, which for those who haven't been, it's kind of a big circus tent, big tent of all types of car cultures. You've got your JDM, your European, your American muscle, your vintage, your late model, exotic, and supercars, literally everything in between. So Lafayette is always a good one. You've got the first and second weekend of the months. You've got this Porsche PCA, Porsche Club of America. They've got this breakfast club. They do the first weekend of the month. They go up in Fort Collins. The second weekend of the month, they're down by Centennial Airport. So you've got that going on. You've got your Lone Tree Cars and Coffee. That's a great one as well. You've got your Longmont Cars and Coffee. Now we're getting into the second weekend of the month. Your Espressos and Exhausts at Vehicle Vault in Parker. That reoccurs every month. You've got your Colorado Euro-Asian Truck Meet. So just some example, Littleton Car Show. So there's stuff that's going to be now happening every month. And the meat of that is really the first 2 weekends of the month. And in addition, we had some cool events that Ryan and I actually both attended. So Ryan, if you want to give the folks a little hit on where you cruised out to with your, I'm assuming it was a Chevy Beretta that you took.
It was the Beretta.
How did I guess?
It's 90% of the time it's going to be a Beretta. Interesting. I was talking with the event host. He wanted to make sure that I got the info so I could start promoting the events. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Oh, that's you? And then I'm like, this meet is literally a mile up the street from my house. Like I could have walked, but then I wouldn't have had a car. It was like 4 minutes up the street. So I rounded up a couple buddies. We head out to the SF7. I know it's backwards, but it's SF7. Searching for Seventh Car Club. Their season opener was on Friday night. Quick, small get together, but it was nice out. So everybody was itching to get out. The event host even made comment of that. They had a small raffle. There was a food truck on site and a vendor. A couple cars came and went through the evening. We hung out for just about 2 hours before they wrapped it up, just because it was getting a little chilly and it was dark. But great. The event host, I believe his name was Jaden. It's Jaden or Caden. Man, see, and I think I meant to say Caden. I think it's Caden.
If you're watching or listening, tell us what your name is.
Even though I asked you twice. They're going to do these weekly. So I'm going to work with him to make sure that as they pick spots, because they're going to rotate. I'm not sure he has it even fully figured out, but they're going to go down weekly, Friday nights. Keep an eye on the newsletter, and you'll see them.
And what was the vibe? What if folks want to show up? What kind of cars can they expect to see? And what was the vibe like?
Well, I'm thinking outside of my Beretta, my buddy's Beretta, I did see one other U.S. vehicle. So it was imports. I mean, I saw BMWs, I saw Audis, I saw new Supras, Civics. You know, it was just a mixed match. They don't really promote a certain style or entity within the car community. It's hey, come and hang out.
Sure. Which
is what we loved. I mean, the vendor on site, the food truck was coffee. I got a nice coffee, stay warm. They were selling Red Bulls too, if you needed that instead. It was just a great vibe. It was nice to be out. We made friends with 2 or 3 people, talking about our cars to them and asking other people about their cars.
Nice. It
turns out, oddly enough, that the lady that was running the coffee truck was like, hey, which car is yours? And I pointed it, and she, oh, is that a Beretta? I was like, yeah, I dated a guy in high school, drove Beretta. And then she's like,
was
you know
it
what? She's like, you know what? There's a Beretta that sits in my neighborhood. It barely ever moves. And I was like, really? And she actually looked it up on maps and gave me the address. So like, hey, dude in Louisville with that blue beat up Beretta, keep an eye out, because I think I'm going to come knocking on your door.
Ryan's going to cruise by and make you an offer.
I just might. It's only 13 miles up the way. So
show up and do a little wheeler dealers.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's a project car, but.
And did you win anything in the raffle?
And yes, they had a raffle, and I actually won. That's where the shirt came from.
Oh, nice.
Bottle of Adams Polishes waterless wash.
Ooh, hey.
Lanyard, some decals, and some, I forget, they're on the counter back there. I think it's Armor All, like multi cleaning wipes or something like that. Just a great little package. He gave 2 of them away. I won one of them, interestingly enough. And then it was just a chill vibe. Nice. Cool. And again, so nice to get out. I don't know if anybody's been out the last couple of days. I hope you have.
Yes.
Because it's been warm, and beware tomorrow. Be prepared.
Yes.
If you're not.
If you don't know, now you know. Yeah. And I cruised down. My TT needed a little exercise. It needed a good highway cruise. So I shot down to Colorado Springs, and I went to the Porsche Klassiker Tauschtreffen at Porsche Colorado Springs. Yeah. So that's a classic swap meet. So it was cool. It was a good little group of vendors, people basically buying, selling, trading vintage classic Porsche parts. So they had some people selling cylinder heads and carburetors and wheels, trim pieces, spoilers, all that kind of jazz. And then they had that kid, Carson, who actually, he shows up at a lot of events, but he sells those Hot Wheels. So this kid had, I don't even know, 4 or 5 folding card tables packed full of Hot Wheels, all Porsche Hot Wheels. So he must have had, I don't know how many dozens of Hot Wheels that this kid was selling, but he was making, doing brisk business, I will say. And his parents were there. Obviously, he's probably 11 or something. And I got to chatting with him and his mom and dad, and they're really cool people. His dad and I were chatting about actually Hondas, and his dad had an S2000, and they were talking about how his son wants to save up for a Miata for his first car. And there was a guy who rolled by in a really clean yellow NSX, a first gen Acura NSX. So we were chatting a little bit about that. So that was cool. And then there was another guy that I guess, because I had been, and my t-shirt is from the Porsche. Okay, there we go. They did this event last year and the year before. So this is from the 2023 event that I got this shirt. And there was a guy that I was talking to who was selling posters and like general memorabilia. And he remembered me from 2 years ago. He said, "I don't remember your name, but you look familiar. And I think you were talking about how much you were interested in buying a 968, a front-engined Porsche." And I said, yeah. And he said, "Well, did you ever get a 968? And I said, "No, I got that TT instead, but the 968 I think is still at some point, that's gotta be in my future at some point down the road." So it was just funny to meet somebody, and we had a nice little chat just generally about cars, and he had some Audi TT stories as well. So just cool to run into people. And I ran into a friend from Boulder who was there actually to test drive some new cars. He's replacing his daily driver, but he has an air-cooled 911. And then of course I saw some of our friends like John and Justin down there, and they were busy, man. They were doing brisk business. They had people test driving cars. They had people coming in looking at cars. I think they had the top part of the used car, the classic car showroom, that whole lineup, all the parking spaces up there, maybe 24 cars. They had all their GT cars. So they had the GT3 RSs, they had the Cayman GT4s and GT4 RSs, they had the Boxster Spiders and Spider RSs. So they had basically a dream car lineup of a couple dozen cars up top there. They had some nice classics in the classic service center. The technicians weren't working that day. I guess they don't work on Saturdays. So they had some cool classics up on the lifts, and yeah, just pretty much eye candy everywhere you could turn your head. And there was obviously, they have a 911, a yellow 911 ST is there right now. Just lots of cool stuff. It's always cool to check out these events and just run into people and talk to people that you know. So yeah, so that's another good reason to keep an eye on the newsletter, is there are always lots of cool one-off events happening throughout the year, and you will read more about them in the newsletter and in the summer events guide. So
I can hear my girlfriend drooling over the fact that there was numerous GTs just stacked.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cool. I actually threw up a few pics on my Instagram a little bit earlier today, but yeah, it was like you just look down the line, the front and the back. The back, you see all the spoilers and the exhausts, and everything's carbon fibered up, and yeah, it was pretty sweet. It was like, I don't know about what other people's in other parts of the country, what their local Porsche dealerships look like, but I don't think they look as good as this. I got to be honest. We're pretty lucky and pretty spoiled here in Colorado, having that many cool cars all at one local dealership. So, you get. And
can I add props to the person that parks the cars? I'm looking at your photos.
Yeah.
And that is a line. Those front bumpers are on point.
Yeah. I think John Deisty and the lot techs were pretty hard at work getting everything laser accurately aligned and oriented. You know, it goes with that German efficiency, right? The precision German engineering. So they need precision parking alignment.
Man, those classics on the lift, that's a beautiful shot.
It really is. And there's way in the back, all the way up against the back wall, there's a black Golf GTI. I want to say first or second gen Mark 1 or Mark 2 Golf GTI. And actually the tech, one of the classic techs there, his name is Jason as well. He told me one time about a year or so ago, he said that car is basically being rebuilt and restored to be as brand new factory showroom. It's some crazy collector who's got all kinds of really high-end exotic stuff and fast stuff and valuable classic stuff, but he really loves GTIs and he wanted this GTI to be like perfect, and he's doing a bunch of very kind of incongruous, very like almost invisible upgrades. So he's doing a whole, I think it was a Bilstein or a K and W, some kind of very high performance suspension kit. But it's pretty muted, like it's black shocks and springs and everything. I don't think it's not like bright blue or yellow or anything that really shouts at you that there's an aftermarket suspension kit under there, but it's all super it's getting really dialed in, and it's going to be essentially the nicest, best performing, you know, old school GTI in existence when it's done. And hey, you know, that's really cool to see cars like that getting the same quality of attention as 356s and GT3s and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. I think I've told you, I knew a guy that did a complete full-on frame-off restoration on a Beretta.
Yeah.
It was probably the cleanest, nicest, newest, most NOS part having. Well, it's still around. He's not, sadly.
Oh.
The car is still around, and it is just a gleaming example. It's won multiple awards at our annual meet. I knew the guy well. If it wasn't a NOS part, he wouldn't buy it unless he had to get you. Like that car is just amazing. So yeah, you know, it's nice when people take something so tame or forgotten about and completely give it, you know, brand new life like that.
Yeah. And just the attention to detail, to your point of getting like only those new old stock parts and getting everything exactly right. And, you know, I guess if there's an opportunity to upgrade some of the performance as well, that's not a bad opportunity.
And for a car that they stopped making in 96 that never really had an aftermarket in the first place, he had his work cut out. I mean, he calling dealerships, you know, utilizing any leads he had. And it's funny because I remember right after he passed, his wife tells me, I'm still getting boxes from like eBay and I don't even know what this is. I had to help her go through a bunch of parts and be okay, you want to keep that, you need that, you can sell that. You know, and her daughter, their daughter, huge into the Beretta community, and she is now the owner of this car.
Cool. That's cool.
And I helped her catalog all her parts and everything. And
yeah,
but yeah, it's the car is still around. Thankfully, sadly, he is not. This might be an awesome segue into a mini market report. I don't know if you had a plan.
Oh, I have a plan.
Oh yeah, but does it include maybe trying to look for something that's been restored?
I get you. I don't. We should have aligned on this beforehand.
No, then hey, we'll skip it. Whatever you got lined up, let's get into that.
Yeah. No, actually, I wanted to talk about. Oops, that's the wrong. Hey, that's the wrong tab. I was going to talk about. So this was a few episodes ago. A few issues ago of the newsletter. But I found, as a market report topic, I found that there's this whole legal thing, and we're not going to get political, but it is a legal thing from state governments, where state governments all across the country have picked K trucks, Japanese K trucks, as a target to ban them. And the more I started digging into this, the more absurd and crazy it got, that like you've got states all across the country. You've got like New York and Massachusetts and I think Georgia, and there are all these random states that are just basically making it impossible to register a K truck, even though now this complies with the 25-year, a lot of these vehicles comply with the 25-year rule that you can import them and register them, where they would not have in period been qualified for a U.S. registration, and they were never sold here, and they don't have the crash testing and the safety and emissions requirements. But through the 25-year rule, now a lot of these vehicles can come in and be legally registered, or so that is what a lot of car enthusiasts believe or are led to believe. But specifically targeting these K trucks, there are all these states that are going through and saying, well, you just can't register them. And there was recently a Colorado bill that was proposed to ban them here in Colorado, and that got shot down. And I think there are some other states as well that haven't made them outright illegal, but they've restricted them to use only on certain like state road, no, not on interstate. Yeah, off-road use for like use on farms, or use on like state roads, not on interstates, on highways that have higher speed limits and all that. So I just wanted to think about this, because as a car enthusiast, I feel like I think a lot of it is on us. It's like we assume the risk of, okay, we're going to drive this Mazda Miata, or this little old, Porsche 356, or this, little K car, or K truck,
smart
right?
car.
We let
smart cars thrive.
Right. Yeah. Or a Suzuki Cappuccino, or a Subaru Sambar, or one of these.
That's a K car. I've met some great people at some recent events that have a nice little Cappuccino.
Yeah.
Those things are cool.
Right. And it's like, if it meets, we already have the 25-year rule. And if it meets that, in my opinion, it should be end of story. And I think the risk is to the driver and passenger of the vehicle. When you're driving in an environment surrounded by Suburbans and Jeep Grand Wagoneers and F-250s and Silverado, you're sharing road space with these massive vehicles. They're not at risk. You're the one who's assuming the risk of being in that situation. And I think it's kind of absurd that it seems like the legal government entity that's behind all of this, it's basically the sort of trade organization of state DMVs. So each state obviously operates their own DMV, and there's a lot of it's up to their own discretion to operate a lot of those systems and processes and create laws that are unique to each state. But there is one like governmental trade organization that all of these state DMVs are associated with. And that group of each of these states, heads of the motor vehicle departments, it's a lot of those folks who are in charge of this group, and they're basically pushing out to each state and kind of trying to exert their influence on the state DMVs to say, hey, let's push this legislation through in your states as well. And it is a little bit absurd to me that this is a target that people are taking. Yeah, it's states that are restricted registering K trucks and vehicles. It's Georgia, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. So a lot of heavy it's East Coast states with heavy traffic, right? With a lot of interstates running through them with large populations. But to me, it's like, what's the if you're on the back roads, country roads in Massachusetts, or you're on a farm in Georgia, what's the harm in having a K vehicle to bop around in, or to go to your point, you're driving a mile and a half down the road to go to a car show on a Friday night? Like, what's the harm in that? Yeah, if you probably don't want to do an interstate road trip in a Suzuki Cappuccino anyway, but
it can't be there. I don't think those are much bigger or smaller than a Miata.
Yeah.
And I guess Miata might not be the best road trip car either, unless you wanted to take like one shirt with you.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it just seems like a very bizarre thing that this organization has set their sights on, to be like, there's all this other stuff going on. There's all this other stuff going on the roads, and crazy drivers and people driving with 2-year expired temp tags and no registrations, but we're going to go after people who are, this is K trucks. We're talking about what, a couple thousand vehicles in the US total. This is not like everybody and their brothers rushing out to go get one, right? It's like, this is a very niche community that's less than a fraction of a percent of all vehicles registered in the US. And it's totally bizarre.
It almost feels like it's got let's start with the trucks, and then okay, we got those. Okay, so these K cars too, like, why are they so small? They're unsafe. Why it can't go fast enough on the highway? Whatever their reasoning is, who knows? I don't get it. And you mentioned New York. That's the beauty of a K car. It's so tiny.
Well, right. It would actually be perfect.
New York, like, come on. You don't want that freedom of movement?
Yeah, and that's where that's urban environments are one of the places that smart cars did actually sell in. And there you can see in urban environments, you see Mini Coopers, you see Golfs and GTIs, and you see small hatchbacks, Ford Focus, right? You see these small vehicles in a lot of urban environments because it's difficult to park and it's congested and crowded, right? So having in an urban environment where most cities have pretty low speed limits to begin with. So unless you're on a highway that's exiting the urban environment, if you're really operating within the core of the city and on surface streets that are 30 miles an hour, maybe 35 mile an hour speed limits tops, I don't see that there's any danger. And again, you, the driver, and whoever your passenger is, they're the ones assuming the risk of, if we get into a crash with a Jeep or a, Chevy Tahoe, we're probably going to be banged up pretty well and we're probably going to get hurt. But that's on you. That's the risk you assume. And you're certainly not putting anyone else in danger. And it's certainly safer, talking about urban environments, it's certainly safer for pedestrians and cyclists if you're in a K car or a K truck, because you've got great visibility. You're low with the right down with pedestrians and bicyclists, that eye level. I mean, driving pickup trucks and big SUVs is very dangerous because you can't see. It's very hard to see. You have a giant hood, you're high up, and if anything, it's safer in an urban environment for pedestrians and cyclists. So I don't know. I think to me, it's just a very bizarre thing that, like, no one should really, the governments and the state DMVs, as long as it complies with the 25-year import rule, like, that should be the end of the conversation. I don't understand why anybody feels the need to get into outlawing or banning these vehicles.
Yeah, somebody didn't like it for whatever reason. I just did a quick Google and it's emissions and safety.
Okay.
But like you said, why are you worried about the dude in that car? He's the one that's doing this because he's in a tiny little,
But there are plenty of, you can you can run any other old car, vintage car that's probably just as unsafe and just as polluting or has just as few emissions, right? You can run classic cars that don't have cats and that's why you have a classic vehicle designation, or you have a mileage limit, right? You have those certain license plates and specialty types of registrations that you can get for classic cars that exempt you from. These are not commuter cars. You're not daily driving these type of cars, and you're not doing huge miles in them. Whereas somebody in a, lifted diesel pickup that's spewing smoke out the exhausts, like, that's okay. I don't know. Like I said, it's a strange thing to me. I don't see any rhyme or reason why these cars pose any significant threat to the general population. Probably only presents a threat to the safety and health of the driver and whoever they can rope in as a passenger. But that's personal responsibility, and everyone should, if you want to assume that risk, then that's your choice.
Yeah. Maybe there are, but it's not in the news. There's not coalitions like trying to ban motorcycles,
right?
Or trikes.
Yeah.
These are, whatever the like, what are these, strikers? I can't think of it. The little 3-wheel.
Yeah.
Dillies and all of that stuff. Like, I never heard anybody bitch about those.
Colorado, this is one of the states that doesn't even have a helmet law for a motorcycle. You can be out there with your dome unprotected, riding around on the highway on a, Hayabusa or a Ducati or something, and that's legal. So,
yeah, who knows?
It's so bizarre. That's so bizarre. But anyway, enough about that. But I did want to call that out, because as I do my research for my garage reports, I do sometimes come across these very interesting local developments, and then there's more of a story there. And again, I just find it's very interesting to me why anyone at a government level would care this much about something that really shouldn't matter.
Yeah, senseless. Like, I believe Colorado literally still has a law that it's illegal to borrow your neighbor's vacuum.
Okay.
And it's very specifically stated in some law or writing somewhere that the only thing you can legally throw out of the back of a vehicle in Colorado is, like, I think it's chicken feathers.
Interesting.
I might have messed that second one up, but I know the vacuum thing that was there. It's one of these things, and like, we're sitting here talking, trying to guess why do you want rid of these tiny little economical vehicles? At some point, some congressman lent his vacuum to his neighbor and he never got it back, so he made a law. Right. Like, some of these outdated laws. It's funny. Google them.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll find something that affects you.
And I can't imagine. I mean, the person who's interested in a K car or a K truck, it's not like there's any threat of them. They're not cross-shopping it against a new F-150. I mean, these are wildly different types of vehicles, right? So I get that the reason why a lot of these vehicles were not legal in the US, not legal to be sold in the US in period, was that the automakers didn't want the competition, right? Mm-hmm. Especially during the fuel crisis, and back in the 70s and 80s, as Japanese imports swept through America, obviously the consumers chose that they wanted vehicles that had better build quality than what was coming out of the big three at the time, and they wanted something that was more fuel efficient, and a
turbo.
Yeah, exactly. So it was and a
5-speed turbo.
Yeah, but I don't see that being an issue now. It's like, if you want a pickup truck, like, you get a pickup truck. The people who are driving these cars, it's a fun toy. It's something that's more economical. They live in a city. It's a collector piece. It's just, yeah. Again, it shouldn't even be an issue.
It's
but
personal choice. It sounds like what you're saying.
To your example with motorcycles, it's like the safety issue. If we live in a state where you can ride a motorcycle without a helmet, you should certainly be able to drive a K truck on a normal road. And again, if you want to take it on 470, you probably shouldn't. You probably can't keep up with traffic at 75 miles an hour, but certainly just driving it around Denver and side streets and having fun, taking it to local car shows and stuff, of course, shouldn't be an issue at all. But
I just Googled it. K-Truck max speed, and it's about 50.
sure. Okay.
And then there's
so-
even in the little AI Google notes, it says, not for highways. K-Trucks are not designed for highway driving and should be avoided at highway speeds.
And again, I think if you are the owner of a K vehicle, you understand that and you know that. And yeah, I mean, and it's like I see plenty of people driving classic Beetles and old cars like that. And essentially, I mean, the K truck and K car are essentially the Beetle of Japan, right? Those were the cars that after World War II, that was the way that the masses, the general population had access to a motor vehicle, because they were very small, they were fuel efficient, and they were because of the limit of size on the engine displacement, they were very cheap to register and insure as well. Whereas larger displacement, more powerful vehicles were more expensive. So yeah, it was the car that mobilized the nation. Again, in a similar way that the Beetle did in Germany, or in a similar way that a Model T or something of that nature did in the US, that it was one of the first mass market cars. And of course, every automaker had a version of it that complied with those regulations, limiting in size and engine displacement and all that. So
that's why you buy the K-Truck and you LS swap it.
There you go.
This baby will be doing 100 easy.
So anyway,
do we want to get into some of this car news?
Yeah. I think just a couple quick things. Speaking of car makers that are coming back to the US, this is an interesting one that I saw in the news. Seat, or I guess they're doing it under the Cupra brand, which is basically a Spanish Volkswagen, right? So Seat is a company that's owned by Volkswagen Group. They're a Spanish car company that Volkswagen acquired many years ago, and they've sold all throughout Europe for decades and decades, and they're small and economical, and now they make a lot of EVs and small crossovers and stuff. Anyway, for some reason, Volkswagen Group, with everything else going on, in their infinite wisdom, they've decided that the Seat or Cupra brand would make sense to come to the US market. And so they are going to bring Spanish Volkswagens, mostly small electric crossovers, to the US. I don't know. What do you think? Would you buy, if you saw an ad for an electric Spanish Volkswagen as a consumer, what would that generate in your mind, Ryan? Would you say, I need that in my life?
Well, what you have to do is see it. Let's see here. How do we... I want this one. Yeah. It's not the best photo. The largest photo, but I really like that.
It's a hot hatch, basically.
Yeah, this one in particular, it screams like Ford Focus.
Yeah.
Or like even the Fiesta. I saw a Fiesta at the meet the other night.
Yeah, Fiesta ST, Ford Focus RS. I mean, they make some cool cars, and again, they've sold incredibly well in Europe for decades. I just think convincing an American consumer, it's like, why not just build better Volkswagen products?
I hear you. I completely hear you. That's an excellent point. I think it's going to be, the foreign draw, or like, oh, hey, here's a car you couldn't get before, an entire brand line, oh, we're bringing it to the States. Someone has hopefully done the math, and this makes sense.
I don't know. I think, Volkswagen Group, a lot of the legacy European automakers are in a lot of trouble because sales in China are way down. They have, China's got their domestic EV industry on lock. They have an incredible array of products at incredibly low prices. And those products not only are selling super well in China and kind of blocking a lot of the European automakers out of being able to compete in the Chinese market, but then there's the secondary threat of those Chinese electric cars are being dumped on global markets all over the world, not in the US yet, but certainly in many other countries all over the world, and at very low price points and undercutting the same EV offerings from most of the legacy automakers, European and American automakers. So I think you've got this double threat of like sales down in China, and you've got sales decreasing in other markets for a lot of these European automakers in their own backyards, in their own domestic markets, where you've got this influx of Chinese EVs. So you've got this double threat, sales are down, and you've got the problem, and even in like South America, right, in some country like Brazil, where Volkswagen and Ford and some of these other Chevy, right, other car companies have sold very well, and they've had factories and produced cars, specific models for those markets for decades, unique models to those markets for decades. But even there, you've got Chinese EVs are pretty ubiquitous now. Mexico, a lot of big markets all around the world, it's not just Europe, but it's like all of this is going on. Volkswagen's talking about closing factories in Germany and laying off thousands of employees, right? And so it's like all this is going on, and they've said now's the time to bring a Spanish car brand to the U.S. market.
Who knows? The entire time that you're voicing your contemplations on this, all I can think of is like, do I want to buy a Ford Explorer, or do I want to buy a Mercury Mountaineer? They're the damn same thing with like very tiny differences. Like we do this in the US already. Right. I remember being very young and realizing that Ford was Lincoln, was Mercury, and I was like, what? I thought they were all different. I mean, and they are, but they're all the same. So like what's and like the car I pointed out that sure looks like a Ford Focus, like a hot little hatch. I guess they all kind of have a somewhat similar body style, but it's, why not another version? I guess it's going to appeal to someone, or Volkswagen making terrible decisions.
My crystal ball says it is not a brilliant move for Volkswagen, but then again, I don't work for them, and unless they want to hire me as a consultant. The last thing I'll say about this is that the other interesting tidbit from this news story was that the Cupra brand is going to be sold through the Penske network of auto dealers. So somehow Volkswagen and Penske have reached some kind of an agreement to sell those vehicles through that family of dealerships. And I did find another little, so this is the official photo from Cupra USA, the website. There we go.
Yeah, see, the one on the left is sharp.
I'm not disagreeing. I just think make more compelling Volkswagen products is the way to go, but I don't know anything.
Who knows? Like I said, I guess we'll find out here in a little while.
Well, I don't think Roger Penske will be driving a Cupra EV anytime soon, but
those were sharp cars, but you're right. Like, why not just, I don't know. There's reasons beyond our comprehension.
Make the GTI better. Give me physical buttons again, a better infotainment. I mean, anyway. Okay. Let's pick another topic of conversation. Hey, here's something that's fun. Did you know, Ryan, that there's a brand new, redesigned Mitsubishi Outlander EV?
I do now.
Moving on to our next topic of conversation. There's actually a couple cool things that have been announced recently. Aston Martin is pivoting back to manual transmissions. Their CEO is basically saying that in order to be competitive with the likes of Porsche and get their sales numbers back up, they need to bring manual transmissions back, and they want to shift to a model very Porsche-like where they make one model and then do a lot of variants off of it. So like Porsche has the 911 and they build everything from the base Carrera all the way up to, you know, a GT3 RS and, you know, insane, everything in between, right? So they want to do the same with Aston Martin, and they want to put manual transmissions back into their cars, which is cool. BMW has also said they want to keep V8s around for the US market specifically, because apparently Americans like V8s, which I would agree with. So I think that's cool. I think it would be cooler if BMW didn't make their cars look like, I don't know. Are we allowed to swear on our show?
Sure.
Do we have rules? They look like ass. All new BMWs look like ass.
I don't know. I'm that guy that, I don't know. I know everyone hates these elephant-sized kidney grills, but yep. I don't know. I've seen one or two look that I like it. Giant, big, open. I don't know. But I'm also into some weird stuff.
Well,
I find it interesting that they. I'm looking at some notes here. BMW's head of R&D, Frank Weber, emphasized that V8 engines will continue to be offered in select markets where the demand remains strong. And he says, quote, V8s are here to stay. There are markets such as the US and Middle East where you cannot replace V8s with inline six hybrids. End quote. And that screams America. Like it really just does. Like these people, and to touch back on Aston Martin and the manuals. I mean, I don't want to draw a line in the sand or anything, but true or real automotive enthusiasts, I'm not trying to make a claim here, other than people that are really into cars. They really want those manuals. That's how you feel the road, you feel the car, you get the full driving experience. You know, my girlfriend loves manuals. She's
my wife loves.
We're building a manual Beretta for her.
Yeah.
And I can drive a manual. I prefer to just get in to an auto and push the pedal, and I go. It's just simple. But I can tell you from experience that, man, there is something about banging gears. There really is. Just, you know, like even in slow cars, like the first car I learned how to drive stick in was a 64 Ford Falcon 3 on the tree.
Okay.
So I got that experience even, and you know, like I don't know, you're shifting once every 5 minutes as you climb your way through those tiny little gears. But I mean, even in the slow cars, it gives you that much more of the driving experience. So so props to them, and the keeping of the V8s. Again, America, it's got to be as loud, fast, large as possible, right?
Oh yeah. I would. The last thing about Aston Martin, I would say, I think one of the other thoughts by their executives there is that they see the residual values on manual transmission cars much stronger than on autos, even a really high performing like dual clutch gearbox, which pretty much every exotic supercar and all that, everybody's got dual clutches now, right? So I think one of the thoughts about putting manuals in Astons is that Aston Martins depreciate like a lot. Like they do not hold their value like Ferraris or even, you know, some Lamborghinis, Porsches, right? I think McLaren's, I don't actually know too much how McLaren values are, but I think of those sort of ultra premium, you know, exotic, super exotic, supercar brands, whatever. Aston's always been more luxury, Grand Tourer than super performance, but they've dabbled in high performance. Anyway, I think they've seen that of those brands, the ones that a lot of the models specifically that have manual transmissions hold their values really well. And of those brands, Aston depreciate the most. They depreciate like a German car, like a BMW or a Mercedes or a Range Rover or an EV that just depreciate a lot. So I think their thought is, if we put manuals in our cars, they might retain their value better, and we might be able to convince people to spend $250,000 on our car and not be nervous that that car is gonna be worth $100,000 4 years from now, right? Because that's the proposition, is that people buy a Porsche because you can probably sell it for close to what you got it, especially a GT car or something, like that. So I think that's part of convincing people that this car will retain its value, and that's a lot of money to lose in depreciation. So having some solution for that, I think, is probably where their CEO's head is at. I think that's the direction he's trying to go in, is like, how do we limit some of this depreciation,
the mass loss that comes with time.
Yeah, because if you're in that position, you're going to spend $250,000 on a car. Are you going to spend it on the car that's going to hold its value more likely, or the car that is going to depreciate like a lead balloon? And I think even very wealthy people don't want to lose money. You like keeping your money, and you want to know that you're not going to be, every day that you own it, you're just going to be losing hundreds and hundreds of dollars in depreciation. So I don't disagree with that move, but there it is. Well, we are pretty darn close. We are just at an hour, actually.
We are at time.
So
there's a piece of news you didn't mention.
Oh, I already closed out that tab.
I got it.
What was it?
Cadillac joining F1.
Yes, that's right.
That will be interesting. I will be honest, I don't know a lot about F1. I'm a fan to an extent, minor. I just haven't ever really delved into it much, but I think that's super interesting. Like, I'm a huge fan of the V series Cadillacs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So I can't wait to see their car.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they're gonna put a North Star V8 in it.
Will it at least have OnStar, please?
Yeah, the button.
Yeah, or like on the steering wheel.
Yeah.
They got to do that as a joke. They need an OnStar button on the steering wheel.
That's great. That's right.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't know that, but that'll be interesting. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time a team joined F1, but it's probably a while ago. So this will be interesting, little bit of shakeup, right?
It's definitely been a while. Yeah, I think they're also they're still selecting, because this won't come into effect until the 2026 season. So they're not in it this current season, which is just about to start, but it will be the following year, next year in 2026. And it's Mario Andretti. He's kind of the figurehead of the team. I think initially there was some conversation about his son, Michael Andretti, who runs like the IndyCar team. And I think Michael Andretti's a little bit more of a loose cannon. And I think Mario is perceived as being a little bit more mature and a little bit more, I don't know, he's a little classier. I think Michael Andretti he's had some controversies and things in his past.
Yeah, he's old school.
Yes, he is old school, and he was an F1 driver as well as NASCAR and IndyCar and a couple other disciplines. But yeah, it's cool that he's going to be the figurehead for the team, and it sounds like sometime soon they're actually going to be announcing their drivers. And yeah, it's cool to have an American team, American brand as kind of the team sponsor and developing their engines in the future. And I think Drive to Survive was the best thing that ever happened to F1 because literally everybody that I talk to who isn't particularly into cars has watched Drive to Survive, and they tell me, "Hey, Jason, you like cars and you like F1, right? I watched this show," and it's like the perfect gateway drug to the average non car enthusiast into F1. So
I'm looking at some of those. I Googled it. That's what I do. Interesting notes. Ferrari has agreed to supply Cadillac with their power units and gearboxes for 2026. Cadillac will join the hub of F1 teams that work out of the UK. And Cadillac will use Toyota's wind tunnel in Germany.
So it's not really an American car. It's pretty international. Although I think they will have a small technical development center in North Carolina, sort of the NASCAR heartland, where a lot of the NASCAR and IndyCar teams are based out of that region in North Carolina. And I think they will have a technical center there with a couple hundred jobs. But yeah, there's going to be, to your point, global development. And until they get their own engine developed and approved and all that, it will be Ferrari power plants. I'm assuming Ferrari will be giving them the leftovers.
Yeah, the bottom of the barrel stuff. We scraped this one up from parts we found on the shop floor.
Yeah, it's the one that they let their kids. Our kids built this engine on the weekend, and we'll let you have it, Cadillac. Good
yeah.
luck.
Oh, this is the engine we put on the rev limiter test for the last 24 hours.
Yeah. Well,
don't worry, it's still got compression. It's good.
They can always LS swap it if they really need
hey,
to. But...
America again.
All right. Is that a show?
We made it through this list of news that's been on the list of things to talk about since inception of this podcast.
I'm glad some of them are still relevant.
Well, now we'll have to fill it back up again. That was that. It's an hour.
Yeah,
you're probably tired of us.
That's it. Let's wrap her up. You want to give us the closing proceedings, Ryan?
Yeah. As always, hey, like you saw, our first two episodes we had guests. This one we didn't feel like lining anybody up. We just kind of wanted to be the stars of the show, for lack of a better term. Always looking for guests to discuss a myriad of topics. If you want to be on and have a compelling discussional point, then let us know. Is there somebody you want to see on? Is there something you want us to talk about?
Can we get Mario and
Andretti? Cut you off on the highway the other day. I'm sorry, but I can't find that guy. But I'm willing to bet it wasn't a K truck. But as always, letters to the carburetors, as we say. If you want to see something, see someone, hear something discussed, reach out, downshift at coloradocarsandcoffee.com. That's how you can get a hold of the two of us directly. Comment on one of the posts in Facebook if that's your thing. The mandatory like, comment, subscribe. It will help, and hopefully these shows get better.
I think this one was pretty good. We're pretty much at time. I think our first two shows ran over, but yeah, we're living, we're loving, and we're learning, Ryan.
Yes, this is true.
Live, laugh, love, learn, all those things.
All the L's. But we don't want to take any L's, as the kids say.
No, we want W's all
day. No cap.
All right.
All right. Before that gets any more absurd.
That's a show. Yep. And I'm Jason.
I'm Ryan.
This is Downshift.
Signing off.
Thank you.